Who doesn't love a good graphics card showdown and comparison, especially if you have any doubts in which one to get when the difference is measured in tens of dollars. Hello guys, Matthew here and welcome back again to my channel. After checking out Gigabyte's RTX 2060 Super Gaming OC model, feel free to check that video out, I will put it in the right top corner. I got my hands onto the MSI's RTX 2060 Gaming Z model, so a non-super one, which I'm also going to review separately in the near future, so be sure to subscribe for that one. I was thinking why not compare them to each other, since they are going to be a pretty often dilemma among users, and see which one brings in a better value for your needs and budget. Pulling their specifications up and putting them side by side, it's clear that the RTX 2060 Super has an advantage over the regular RTX 2060 in every field. I mean, of course it has, it's a super card, it says right on the box. Before all, it has 256 CUDA, 4 RT and 32 Tensor cores more, wider memory bus and higher memory bandwidth, 8GB of GDDR6 video memory instead of 6GB that RTX 2060 has, while also having the same memory speed. But the RTX 2060 Super does fall behind in one segment, that being the reference GPU boost clock, where the regular RTX 2060 has 30 MHz advantage over it, but in practice that doesn't mean that much because A, the final GPU boost clock varies depending on thermals and other factors, B, most of you will buy an aftermarket model just like these ones from MSI and Gigabyte, and they are factory overclocked out of the box, so the final GPU clocks vary anyway from model to model. In the end, this little difference in frequency also isn't that important since both of the cards are coming from different segments in respect to their GPU specifications that I've just mentioned, so one having few megahertz more over the other won't be the main source of performance difference between these two series. As you saw, the representative for the RTX 2060 series in this case is coming from MSI, and that's their Gaming Z model, which is not the cheapest aftermarket model out there, with its price tag being an above average among all other offering for this series. Price-wise, the same comment can be applied to Gigabyte's Gaming OC model representing the RTX 2060 Super series. I'm using Nvidia's web shop here as a reference point for the pricing, just to have a somewhat of a level field. So, in the case of these two models, the pricing difference between them, at least according to this web shop, is $40 or just a bit above 10%. This would be one of the scenarios with a smaller price gap, which is pretty close to the difference of their MSRP launch prices, just a bit higher, but ultimately you're paying more for the same product, so it doesn't matter what the difference is, which is why I'm trying to find something that's, so to speak, more realistic and comparable. Let's say we have someone who is on a budget. If you were to look and compare the cheapest options among them, so the cheapest RTX 2060 and the cheapest RTX 2060 Super, the difference would be even greater. Coincidentally, both of these examples of the cheapest models for each series are coming from same Gigabyte's basic WindForce series, so the price comparison is pretty on point. In that case, the difference boils down to amount of $70, which makes the RTX 2060 Super around 20% more expensive. That same number is the target goal, or to put it better, performance gain and performance difference which the RTX 2060 Super has to achieve over the regular RTX 2060 model in order to justify its own purchase on paper. I've listed my setup in the description box down below, so feel free to check it out. And in case you're thinking of buying one of these two GPUs, feel free to let me know in the comments section down below if you have any questions about them, and I will help you out. And now, let's check out the performance of these puppies. Right off the bat, you can see that, at least according to the synthetic benchmarks, I was pretty close to scale with that difference, but as soon as we cross over to real games, that performance gain between them tapers off to even below 10% in some cases. Bottom line, I was way below the 21% mark in majority of my benchmarks. I've used both the 1080p and 1440p resolution for my testing, which is where these two GPUs feel at home, and that's 1080p in regards to high refresh rate gaming and 1440p for your regular refresh rate gaming. According to their official specifications, their TDP figures are 160 watts for the RTX 2060 and 175 watts for the RTX 2060 Super series, so basically there's no point of addressing their GPU temperatures across the series, since that difference isn't that big to begin with, nor that it is that important in a way that it would affect anything on a greater scale. Plus, most importantly, when it comes to aftermarket models, it varies from graphics card model to graphics card model, or their cooling setup to be precise. As for their power consumption, in my case there was barely any difference, and that's probably because each manufacturer had a different power design approach, although Gigabyte's RTX 2060 Super model in this case even had an extra 6-pin next to 8-pin PCI Express power connector. Once again, that goes to show how this design segment can affect power draw to the point that even though these two GPUs are differently spec'd, they have a power draw which is pretty much neck and neck, but then again, in this case it was somewhat conditioned since their GPU specifications aren't quite that opposite from each other, so there's not that much room for getting any substantial difference. If you were to compare their reference designs, you would probably see more obvious change. So, what's my conclusion? It was obvious that the RTX 2060 Super is going to be a superior card, that wasn't the question, but it was interesting to see how it stacks up against its cheaper brother, especially in regards to price to performance ratio, which, as you saw, doesn't go into Super's favor. But of course, if you really need better performance and you're willing to spend that extra $50, $60, $70 more on a graphics card, there's really nothing stopping you from doing that. But on the other hand, if you think that you won't see any difference in performance in regards to what you would use it for, in a way that it wouldn't matter to you, then rather get a better CPU, additional storage or RAM, or more attractive chassis. Or you can just be like Billy. That's it for this time from me. Thank you once again for watching. Feel free to toss me a thumbs up if you enjoyed my content. That really helps a lot. And if you like what you saw, be sure to subscribe, and if you already are, be sure to press that notification bell down below so you don't miss out on a new video. And until then, catch you later, guys.